Hey, traders, and welcome back. And I'm going to talk about a subject that I deal with all the time as an educator. And, it's something that I think a lot of educators get a lot of slack for because um, what happens is that you teach something and then, you know, your students either learn it or they don't, and even if they learn it, sometimes they still can't do it. And I think this is something that needs to be dealt with in the trading world because I think most educators are absolute crap, but the good ones that are out there, they still have to deal with this too because, um, you know, when I teach something that I've learned, it has taken me 37 years to learn a lot of mistakes, a lot of suffering, a lot of pain, a lot of losses, and a lot of errors during that time, to get to the knowledge that I have. You learn more from your pain and suffering than you do from your gains. But um, when you go through these things, you try to instill them into your students, and you try to instill everything that you can, but it's still very, very difficult. So we just had a conversation here. I've X'd out his name, so I don't want to isolate him as a student. Um, but he said everything is gapping down today and is going up, even the worst dailies. Hate these days. I am out of RL, took away all my month's profit. So for those of you that didn't see my RL trade last night, now, I said, obviously, you didn't watch my video. He said, I did watch it, gives you a like on YouTube. So even after me recommending RL to him, he still gave me a like. I love him. But anyways, the point I want to show here is something really important. We had a little bit of a conversation. He says, yes, it was a stupid thing that I did. And we talked about 1 month of perfect trading is gone in 1 day, and tomorrow I'm going to start to trade perfectly again. And he says here, your teachings are good. If I just trade what I learned, I make money, but sometimes I make stupid things like shorting RL. And I commented here. I said, don't we all? That's the golden goose. I'm the worst at breaking my own rules, but the only savior is I'm good enough to recover. But I wish I didn't have to. I wish I just followed my rules, right? So we were talking about algos, right? And uh, we were saying, should we write algo? So he was saying, I've had 3 positive months trading, like I learned, growing my account. I'm very happy with that. So, that's the whole thing. And that's kind of what the whole basis of my conversation was. And, I can teach people, an educator can teach you, but you still have to do it properly, right? There is no shortcut to that, right? So, um, what is the lesson? What's the takeaway? The takeaway is this. The takeaway is, first of all, are your methods strong enough so that you can recover? That is really, the number one thing. Now, he made a mistake on this trade where he actually short the stock, and he short it with a company called Colmex, which charges you to hold shares overnight. So the entire trade was a 1 month trade. And I still think RL is going to come back down. We're going to see these new lows of 86.22 within the next 30 to 60 days. So I planned my trade accordingly. He didn't think it through. Okay? He took it in a platform where he can't hold it overnight, and they charge him insane fees, so he had to cover the trade. Now, I did it with an options trade, but my point is this. My point is that, you know, when you learn from an educator, and I don't want you to confuse this. Here's the thing. Some educators, when they teach you stuff, it's so complicated that there's so much that can go wrong that, of course, you can't do it right. Now, that is just kind of the sad reality of this business. Because trading, whether you want to believe it or not, is an extremely complex process. There are multiple factors that go into what happens on any given trade on any given day. So overall, we got this exact context perfect. We knew Ralph Lauren was going to suck as far as earnings were concerned. They beat the crappy earnings because the earnings estimate, but they still lost 13%. And so our analysis of the company and the industry was correct, but we missed one thing. There was a big short squeeze on this stock. Okay? There's a big short squeeze on this stock, and that's why we got punished. And not only that, Coors came out the same day, and they had guided higher. So another large company inside the industry. So we had two things go against us, right? So the point being, you can be very, very right about a situation, but you can still lose money on trading. And that's one of the things that people just don't understand about this business. People keep treating this business like it's a dynamic black and white situation. And it's not a dynamic black and white situation. It is a context that you are trying to build probabilities in your favor. Okay? Nobody really knows what's going to happen next. Not even Janet Yellen. If you were Janet Yellen, you still would not know how the market would react. She could come out and raise interest rates tomorrow, and yeah, most likely the market would have a huge sell-off with a surprise interest rate, but you don't know. You just don't know because there are several other factors that are in play, such as liquidity, such as volume, such as volatility. There's a number of other factors that are in play, upcoming other events, geopolitical situations. And, this is where I want to stress to you, whenever you're learning from somebody, and my answer was really simple. I said context. Plan your trades around levels and context. The rest of the stuff I teach you is just fine detail. But you must be perfect. An airline pilot cannot be perfect or people die. A trader cannot be perfect or accounts get crushed 100% of the time, not 99% of the time. So what does that mean? That means that whenever you learn something, whatever it is, and there's several pieces of the puzzle that I teach people how to look at the context of every situation to make a calculated gamble. Very, very simple, okay? That's the best we can do. Even if you were counting cards in Las Vegas and the count was really high, let's say 21, it was 20 or something like that, and you had a huge count, which meant that the probabilities were massively in your favor, you still can lose. I always laugh at, have you guys seen these option trader sites where they have things and they say 90% winners, right? You guys have probably seen this type of stuff, like options trading, right? Options trading and 90% winners, right? And they all do this. They all talk about this, right? 90% accuracy. There we go. How many of them are out there? I'm not gonna pick one out, okay? You can see these things, 90% accuracy. These are binary options, but there's lots of stuff out there that actually is correct 90% of the time. Do you believe that? It's true. I can give you several methods right now, which is mostly credit spreads, which you're going to make money 90% of the time. It's mathematically proven that you will. But here's what's not proven. Okay, let me show you something. Just because you're going to make money 90% of the time, let's just do a little game here, shall we? If you flip a coin, let's say you have a coin, and you have heads, and you have tails on the other side of that coin. Okay? So what are the probabilities of it coming up heads? Right? 50-50, right? 50. It's always 50-50, okay? But does that suggest that you can't have 20 heads in a row? Does that can heads come up 20 times in a row? Sure it can. And what's the probabilities of it coming up heads again on the next flip? Still 50-50. The probabilities have not changed. If you have 90% winning, okay, does that mean that that you can't have, let's say it's 90% heads, okay? It's a special coin, right? And only 10% tails, okay? Does that mean you can't have 3 tails in a row? Of course you can. And if you flip that coin enough times, in other words, if you have a large enough sample size, you could have 30 tails in a row if you had a large enough sample size. As a matter of fact, it's almost guaranteed. You could have 300 tails back to back. It's all about sample size. Okay? So, just because something says it's 90% doesn't mean anything. Do you understand that? Okay? Do not let false things fool you. So what's my point? What am I blabbering about here, Steve? What we're always doing in trading, because there's so many variables that are going on, there's so many different things that are affecting price at any given moment in time, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get to the point where we have as much probabilities in our favor. Okay? But that doesn't mean that we're still not going to be wrong. Okay? Now, the way you make sure that you are at least getting as much probabilities in your favor is you do, if you have a complex system, which the markets truly are, you have to check everything. Okay? So there's a reason why, if you worked at Goldman Sachs, that they have like 5 and 6 different departments. Okay, they have a fundamental department where there's a guy that specializes in nothing but non-farm payrolls, okay? He knows everything. Probably not one guy, probably 10 guys that specialize in non-farm payrolls. And they're really super smart. And they know everything there is to know about non-farm payrolls, okay? And then there's another guy that specializes in manufacturing. And there's another guy that specializes in, shoe manufacturing. And there's another guy that specializes in internet companies. And he probably has a whole team around them. My point being that this business is extremely complex. It is there's a number of different factors which are all accounting for. You have all these different factors that are moving price. Okay? And so right now this factor might be moving price higher, but this factor over here is going to come into play and move price lower. But then this factor over here is going to come into play and move price higher. But then this factor is going to come in and move price even higher. So that might be one day, right? Now, you could have another day, same factors, but they've changed, right? So now you have the same factors. Let's just put those same factors up there. Okay. However, this time, this factor is moving price higher, but this factor is now changed on this day. And so instead of moving price lower, it actually moves price higher. But then this factor is now important, okay? And now this factor is going to move price a lot lower. Okay, so there's the same factors that are affecting the markets, but they change. The context of these factors change. And you have to put those pieces of the puzzle together every single day. So the good news is that's what I teach my students to do. And that's why, that's why this client here, he had a bad day today, right? But that's why he's had, as he says here, I had 3 positive months trading like I've learned from you, growing my account. I'm very happy with that. Okay? But the reason why he blew 1 month of profit today, because he missed a very important factor. He missed one of the pieces of the puzzle. Okay? Had he have thought about that piece of the puzzle, he would not have missed it. But for whatever reason, he's not perfect, he's human, and he missed it. And that happens to all of us, doesn't it? Every single one of you misses something. Now, my real question to you is, if I went and asked him, did you know what you did wrong? Right? Did you know what you did wrong? And he says yes, that's what I want to hear. How many of you don't know what you did wrong until you look at the chart afterwards and say, oh, I missed that on the chart? He didn't miss anything on the chart. He just failed to understand that his broker was going to charge him way too much money to hold that position, so he had to cut it. And he didn't do the trade as an options trade, which would have given him enough time. Because I still think this trade's going to work out just fine. I don't know for sure, but I planned the trade properly because I didn't miss that factor. Okay? So that's my real question to you. How many of you know what factors move price? How many of you know that? And how many of you know how to plan your behavior around those factors? See, the reason why my coaching is superior than pretty much 95% of everybody else's is because I teach you how to understand context. Okay? I teach you, I can't spell with this stupid thing. I teach you how to understand context. So in other words, let me give you an idea. It's early morning in Goldman Sachs. Okay? It's early morning in Goldman Sachs. And they're every morning at, let's say, I don't know, whatever time, okay, they have a big meeting. And let's just say it's about any asset. Let's just say it's about Ralph Lauren. So they have a big meeting on Ralph Lauren, and they bring in all the experts that understand the context to that meeting. Okay? And so you have all these contexts that are going to affect Ralph Lauren. There's technical analysis specialists, order flow specialists, there's ex-floor traders, there's the fundamental guy that knows the big overall economic picture, there's the guy that specializes in retail, and there's the guy that specializes in Ralph Lauren itself. Okay? So they bring in all these different things and they develop a trading plan based around the current context. Okay? The current, I'm sorry for the bad spelling, guys. The current context. In other words, how they are going to treat Ralph Lauren's earnings are going to change based upon several different factors. Okay? So, for example, the order flow specialist might say there's a whole ton of liquidity at 48.75. So, that's where we should be trading the market too, because if we can get up to there, this is where we could short it. But the order flow guy might say, no, there's no liquidity until 92. So they would adapt their strategy based around the fact that there was a boatload of liquidity at 85 versus 92. They changed that. They changed the way they dealt with that situation. There might be a massive short interest on this that they know will have to cover. And so they might play that squeeze. And there'd be somebody at Goldman Sachs that would know all the short position in Ralph Lauren to the T, and they would also know the outstanding interest in the options market that would drive prices higher. Okay? And so they would plan their trade around that. So the context is always going to be different. Okay? the context is always going to be different. And this is what a lot of people don't understand about trading. They don't understand you got to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. If you don't put all the pieces of the puzzle together, you miss one piece, it ends up in punishment. Does your trading method teach you that? Does your trading method teach you that? I don't think so. Okay? If your trading method does not teach you the context of all the things that move price, liquidity, fundamentals, order flow, volatility, all those different things, okay? If you don't know the context of the pieces, you can't build it right, okay? I can be wrong on what I thought was going to be happen. But if I understand the context, I can adapt to the trade. And I can adjust the trade so that even if I'm wrong, hopefully, ultimately, I can make money because I'm taking into consideration all the context. Does that make sense? Anyways, I spent a long time on this because I really wanted to stress the fact, are you trading with a method that gives you a full context? Number one. Number two, how complex is that method? And, are you getting the type of results that you want? And if you're not, is something that you can change in your execution of context doable? That's what you've got to work on. Okay? And I was telling my student, I cheat all the time on the stuff that I teach my students. I cheat. I cheat. I'm the worst cheater because sometimes I think I'm too smart for my own methods. And I will cheat on them, and I usually end up paying the price. But the good news is that I can go back to the baseline information and make the money back. That's just a part of my personality. I don't think I'm probably ever going to change. And I know that sounds like a little bit of a cop-out, but it's who I am. And so I know my strengths and I know my weaknesses. I wish I could do everything perfectly. And if I did everything perfectly, I wouldn't be teaching you guys. I don't Fiji, right? So you're kind of lucky that I don't do everything perfectly. The good news is that if you're like my students, if you learn the things that I teach and you do them, then you will have profitable month after profitable month after profitable month. And when you do screw up and make a mistake, you can go back to what you've learned and make it right over time. Anyways, 23 minutes here, but it's a really important video that I think a lot of people have to understand about this business, and hopefully you enjoyed it. Please leave a like or dislike down below if you think Steve was just rambling. I apologize. I just did this video on a last minute off the cuff thing because I'm really super bored right now. And I'm just really not trading today. I have some big swing trades that are working and I'm letting them play out. I'm not really day trading. And the conversation came up, so I thought I would share it with everybody. So thank you for your time. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Spread this video around. It's really important. If you cannot answer those situations and you can't trade like a professional and your method does not allow you to build a context, remember, context is king. That is what matters more than anything else in this business because we are dealing with chaos. All right. Thank you. Bye for now.